Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Bruce Turkel. Bruce just published his last book, Is That All There Is? We interview a lot of people that have made change in their life, very inspiring. And I hope that's exactly what you're going to be or to have after listening to our conversations, being inspired and have a lot of inspiration. Enjoy my conversation with Bruce Turkel. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meetings podcast. And today I have the great pleasure to have again, and he's the first repeat of almost 90 episodes now. He would tell you that maybe nobody wants to talk to me anymore, or I ran out of people that I can interview, but none of that is true. The reason that my good friend Bruce Turkel is again with us today is because he just published his sixth book, I believe, which is called Is That All There Is? It's full of stories. It's going to inspire you. And I'm so glad you're taking the time. Bruce, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm honored. I was honored to be invited, period. Now to know I'm the first repeat. Wow, that's just great. Thank you, Eric.
And for all the good reasons. And before we get into your book, which I read, which I love, I even called you in the middle of it. And the first thing I said, even before introducing myself,
I love your book.
Exactly.
That was great.
So if you can share with people listening, because I think that your story is going to resonate with a lot of people. How did you come about writing this book? And what was your professional journey that basically this book is really the epitome of it and the conclusion of all the things you've experienced so far? Sure.
I'll make it quick. But my journey was that I always wanted to be involved in graphic arts. It's what I was interested in: design, art, all sorts of commercial art. So I studied art and design in college. After I got out of school, I went to New York because, if you grow up in the States and you want to be in a creative advertising, you go to New York. That's kind of what you do. And I worked in New York as an assistant art director for an agency. And then eventually I moved back to Miami. I missed living in Miami. And I worked at a couple of agencies down here. And after a few years, I had this notion that I can do this. They don't do anything that I do all the work. I come up with the ideas. I design all the stuff. By the way, none of that was correct, but that's the way I saw it. My father had a great line. He called it the confidence of ignorance. So ignorantly, I was confident. And I went out and I started my own design firm, which we had some ups and downs, and it was tough, but little by little we grew, morphed into an advertising agency, morphed into what I called a brand management firm, and we became fairly successful. We had wonderful clients, companies you've heard of: Bacardi, Hasbro, Citicorp, Miami Tourism, Puerto Rico Tourism. We did project work for Nike and for American Express, and we were doing really well. We opened offices in Latin America. We had quite a nice business there as well. And that was all going along fine. It's what I always wanted to do. And, you keep your eye on the ball, you run a business, you don't really pay attention to what else is going on, because running a business is it's a full contact sport and you're involved all the time. Marshall McLuhan said, I don't know who discovered water, but it wasn't a fish. And so I was a fish swimming in this water, but I never stopped to look outside beyond the aquarium. Mm-hmm. But little by little, I started to realize after a lot of years that I wasn't finding it quite as fulfilling as I always had. I had started a speaking business where I spoke at conferences around the world. I loved that. I had written 4 other books on marketing, branding, and a novel. I loved that. I was doing a lot of things that interested me, but I was finding the agency to be less and less interesting. I was still doing work I was proud of, but it was just, I had done it enough. And there's a number of reasons why I decided to change. However, one of the ones that were interesting that I found was that friends of mine would come to me and tell me, well, first they would ask if I would go to lunch with them. They wanted to pick my brain. I always thought pick my brain was get free marketing advice. But it turned out that I have
this T-shirt that says, I'm billing you for this conversation.
Yeah, I get that. You want to say, wait. So you're going to buy me a $7 salad and I'm going to give you $100,000 worth of business ideas? That's a good business model. Where do I sign up for that one? Yeah. But I would go with them because we were friends. And then what they would present to me was how unhappy they were doing what they were doing. Now, these were successful people, physicians, lawyers, professionals, architects, business people, men and women. And they would always have the same story that they went to school, they studied whatever it was, they built a business, and now they weren't happy. And it happened enough that I started to notice a pattern. I was wondering, first of all, why were they coming to me? I'm not a therapist. And what I found out when I would ask them was they saw what I was doing, that I was traveling around the world, speaking at conferences, shooting commercials, working with, I played in a band and we did music for all that kind of stuff, writing books. And they thought that what I was doing was so creative and fulfilling. I didn't really have an answer for them. I didn't know what they should do. But one of the things I remember saying, and it kind of became my standard answer, was, you ought to get a journal and you ought to keep notes. And every day you should write down, what your experiences are. It's something I did because I said a lot of people are interested in this subject. And I think if you go through this journey, others are going to want to know about it. Mm-hmm. Well, other things continued to happen. And one day it just dawned on me, you've heard the expression, physician, heal thyself. Why was I telling everybody else to do this when in fact, it's what I wanted to do? What do they say? We teach what we need to learn. So I started really focusing on that. What did I want to do? And decided that what I did not want to do was run this business anymore. So I came to a very fair deal with my partner. We had been partners for a long time, and we worked it out quite equitably. It took a couple of years, but made it all work. And I left. And one of the things that I have done in my reinvention is to write this book.
You mean this book?
Yeah, that's it. That book. And if we could put them together, wait, if you hold yours up, I guess we can't do this. We're in separate screens, but you see.
No, I can try. Just hold it. Hold it.
Actually, you can do it like this.
Hold it. Et voila. Just took a picture.
Okay. So the idea is, I wrote the book and I started spending time focusing on how I could help people answer this question and solve this problem.
So you said something that really struck with me. Is that I knew that that's not I wanted to do anymore. How do you know that? Because I'm sure that a lot of people will say, oh, maybe they've been through another crisis and have to rebuild their business, or maybe they feel that they're still doing the same thing. But what is the tipping point, or what is the moment when you say, you know what, I don't have that drive anymore. I really need to change.
Well, there's a lot of things. If you grew up in the West, you are constantly bombarded with this concept of never quit. If at first you don't succeed, try again. And so we believe that, in fact, that's the right course to take. And that's our mindset. Just keep moving forward, put one foot in front of the other. In fact, a couple of people who I interviewed in the book, that was their mindset. Just keep moving forward. But things start to happen that you realize that's not actually the situation you're in. First of all, we're not talking about people who are dealing with existential problems. For example, my business went bankrupt. They foreclosed on my home. Oh my God, how am I going to feed my family? If that's what you're dealing with, you have bigger fish to fry. And sorry to say that this sense of, is that all there is? This sense of ennui is not front and center in your consciousness. Your consciousness is all about survival. This is kind of like Maslow's pyramid of needs, hierarchy of needs, rather. You're moving up the hierarchy of needs until you get to self-actualization. So we're dealing with people who have the luxury to look at their lives and say, why am I doing this? And it's people who have achieved a relative level of success. And by relative, what I mean is, you and I are not debating whether we should take the Lear or the Gulf Stream to Kitzbühel or Innsbruck for the season, right? That's not our issue.
Right.
But on the other hand, we're not worried about who's going to pick up the lunch tab when you and I go to get a bite to eat together. So relative success, my needs are paid for, my kids are through college, things are good. In fact, one of my guilty feelings was, what right do I have to be unhappy with what I've done? I wanted to grow this business. I did it. It raised my family. It like I said, it put my kids through school. It helped me buy a house. I've done all those things. So that's part of the issue, is that we cloud our consciousness because we don't want to see those things. But when you have those nagging suspicions, and let's face it, when you're up at 2 a.m, chewing your cheek and staring at the ceiling, you know what it is you're thinking about. Yep. In my case, I went to see a friend of ours, you know her, Susan Ford Collins, who is amazing. A brilliant, brilliant woman, author, business coach, therapist, all rolled into one. I was explaining this issue that I had because I had not come to any sense of conclusion or even comfort with it. What right do I have to be unhappy? So I explained it to Susan, and Susan said, let me ask you a question. When you leave your office to go find new business and you travel, you drive somewhere or you fly somewhere, when you come back, do the people in your office give you presents? And I thought, like, hey, welcome back, boss. Here's a beer. I mean, presents? What do you mean? She said, well, do they come up to you and go, hey, while you were away, metaphorically speaking, of course, but while you were away, I did this, this, and this for you. Here you go. Mm. And I said, well, yeah, my business partner runs the business. Our CFO, Sarah, our bookkeeper, Zoila, they handle all of the stuff I hate to do. We have art directors and copywriters who show me ideas that I never would have thought of. So yeah, some of them do. She says, or do you return to the office and your office is like a nest and there's all these little birds, these little baby birds with those red, yellow throats, right, with their mouth going, gee, 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 gee. And you have to drop the worms into their mouth. And you know, I'm a very visual person. I actually drew this in my notebook. But when she said that, I could not get that mind picture out of my head. And every time I'd come back to the office and someone would say, can I talk to you for a minute? Can I show you this? Hey, the client doesn't like, all I heard was, and having that clear image in my mind really crystallized for me why I didn't want to be there anymore. It wasn't the work. It wasn't even the people. I love the people I worked with. It was more that I didn't want to do the same thing, even the good stuff, over and over and over again.
That's a great summary and analysis when you reach that point. I guess, I know I was reading articles, I don't know the percentage, but it's like the majority of people are looking to find another job than what they're currently doing. How do you look at the world today? Not only with the people you've interviewed and the book you wrote, is that all there is, especially with, you reach a certain experience in your life and maybe want to do something else. But how do you look at the world today? And you think it's something has changed in that, what's the right word? In that context for people asking themselves more questions because of COVID, because of what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. But let's back up from COVID a little bit, because before COVID happened, all of the markers of dissatisfaction were already there. I'll give you an example. If it was 20-ish years ago or 30-ish years ago, and you were really good at what you did, which I'm assuming the people in your audience are, because they're type A people, otherwise they wouldn't be watching your podcast, right? They would be
correct
doing something else, but they're trying to get better all the time. So if you were a leader, a professional, or whatever it is you do, your competition was kind of in front of you. If you were good at what you did, your competitive set was in your geographic area, and you did well enough. With a couple things that happened, first of all, the internet, certainly, the democratization of information, globalization, technology's ability to repeat anything in perfect copies, and so on and so forth. All of a sudden, that changed. Used to be, if you wanted to buy something, you bought it locally. Retail, you went to a store. Professional services, you went to a local law firm. If you needed a radiologist to look at your x-rays, you found a radiologist in town and you carried that manila envelope under your arm and you took it to them. That all changed. Almost overnight, people could buy anything, anywhere, from anyone at any time. Competitive sets grew exponentially. Yeah. At the same time, we all started carrying around these magical devices that know everything. So having specific knowledge about something was no longer a competitive advantage. So that changed as well. All these things were happening. The world was changing, but they didn't happen in an explosion. It was happening, although in a short period of time, but it was happening over time. It's kind of like looking at climate change. It's pretty clear to almost everybody that these things are happening. But because they're not instantly cataclysmic, we can say, well, we can wait. Well, we'll see. Well, something's going to come along. We're able to sort of take the edge off, as it were.
Right.
However, then along comes a worldwide pandemic that just kicks us all in the head. And instantly, supply chains shut down. The ability to get services, goods and services ends. Our ability to travel, to go out, goes away. We are all finding ourselves sheltering in place. We are not going out to eat, on and on and on and on. It happened global. It's a global pandemic, and it happened instantly. And that's the catalytic mechanism which forced people to really rethink their existence. Because all of a sudden, good and bad, by the way, all of a sudden you're thinking, you know what? I don't have to go to the office. Zoom, WebEx, or whatever technology I use works pretty well. I get a lot of more work done. I don't have an hour of commuting in the morning and at night. There were a lot of differences. So all these things together created a perfect storm. And that perfect storm allowed us to take a step back and say, when this ends, I am not going back to the way it was. Business as usual is no longer usual. Right. You've heard the new normal, then you heard the now normal, then we've heard the no normal. Pick whichever one you want, but the truth is the normal is not going to ever be what it was again.
Yeah, and to that point, I heard so many stories the last month about people not willing to go back to the office, or not willing to get into the same type of job that they were in before. Basically wondering what makes them happy, what they like, what they want to be doing. And it goes from, I don't want to do what I'm doing right now, or I don't want to be with the spouse I'm right now because they've been living with each other from morning till evening for 365 days, up to actually, those are my values. Those are the things I want in my life, and I want to have more of this. So as we slowly emerge of that, there's a lot of stories in your book, which I love, and it's very inspirational, because it shows that basically when you decide to make a change, well, everything is possible. But as we emerge from this, those last 19 months, what would be your advice for people from what you've learned interviewing those guests in your book about how they should be going about it? What type of question should they ask themselves? When should they take a risk? What is the best practice that you want to share from all the interviews you had in your book? Is that all there is?
Well, that's an excellent question, Eric, because the whole point of the book and the way I try to write is to offer people both proven and actionable recommendations, not simply to say, theoretically, here's what's going on, but no, here's what 15, including me, 15 people who have drastically pivoted and changed their lives. Here's what they did. By the way, they don't always agree. There's disagreements as well. But there's a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, don't quit your day job. Don't rush to do this. Do it thoughtfully. It's one thing to say, take this job and shove it, and you feel good for about a minute, but you don't want to create more problems for yourself. In fact, you want to make your life better, easier, more efficient, more productive, whatever. So don't rush headlong into anything. You can ease your way into it. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm not happy with the way things are, but I'm going to bear with it so it will help me invest in where I want to go. That should, by the way, take some of the pressure off people also, because they don't have to feel like I have to do this immediately. No, I can be deliberate. I can be thoughtful. I can really do some introspection. Second of all, I think it's important to remember that you're not alone. I mean, I interviewed like 45 people for the book. 15 of them made it into the book. But everybody is going through something. Here's something that I learned from looking back over all the interviews. The facts of each person's journey can be different. You and I were born in different places. We speak different languages. We have different numbers of children. We have different interests. We live in different places, on and on and on. The facts are different, but the truths are universal. We essentially want the same things. We want to be happy. We want to be satisfied. We want to be good providers. We want to live up to our values. Our values might be different factually, but the truths of our values tend to be rather consistent, much more than we believe in this polarized environment that we're in. We all kind of want the same thing. And by the way, that's not just now. This goes back thousands of years because I did a lot of research into how people did these things over time. Why did my grandparents leave Eastern Europe and come to the United States? Why did my wife's parents leave Cuba and come to the United States? New generation, why did you leave Europe and come to the United States? Very different facts, very different exact reasons, but the same truths. And these movements of mankind have been going on for thousands of years. And if you look at them, you'll find that they mostly happen for essentially the same reason. The other thing is there's all sorts of learning that can be found in history. So Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, where he talked about his experiences in concentration camps, he said that when you're powerless, they can take away all but one thing. They can take away your strength, your health, your riches, your control over yourself, over your body, rather, your time, all of that. What they can't take away is the way you respond.
Yeah, your mind.
He said that is truly in your power.
Yeah.
That was 60, 80 years ago, World War II. But if you go back thousands of years and you see the Stoics in Greek and Roman times, they said the same thing. They talked about controlling not your environment, not the people you deal with, but yourself. And Socrates said, first know thyself.
Yep.
So here's my recommendation. A, don't quit your day job. Hang in there. B, don't feel like this is only happening to you. This is universal, not just around the world, but through history. And then number 3, know thyself. What do you want? Now, that's easy to say, and it's hard to answer.
Absolutely.
If you ask people, they'll say, oh, I want to be happy. I want to be fulfilled. Okay, that's fine. But those are kind of like Hallmark greeting cards. That's like when I ran my agency and I'd say to companies, what do you want? And they'd say, more business. Sure, you want more business, but do you want more business from your existing clients? Do you want new clients? Do you want fewer clients who spend more money so you can focus on them? Do you want more clients who spend less money so you're going to be more of a volume play? They're all very different. What do you actually want? And I don't want to pick on anybody here, Eric, but if you ask people, they don't know. They'll tell you what they don't want. Well, I don't want to work for that jerk anymore. Well, I don't want to work at that for that much money anymore. Well, I don't want to get in my car and drive. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. That's fine. But you can't move forward based on what you don't want. You need to know what you do want. That's the hard part. If you figure that out, figuring out how to get it is not nearly as hard.
How do you do that? How do you find out what you want?
Well, there's a number of exercises. We had put them together when I ran the agency because clients would hire us. If we wanted to keep the account, it wasn't doing what we wanted to do. It was doing what we wanted to do vis-a-vis what they wanted to accomplish. So we would say to them, what do you want to accomplish? And they'd say, as I told you, I want more business. What do you mean? Well, if it was a hotel, they'd say, well, I want more people to stay in my hotel rooms. We'd say, okay, then cut your room rates in half. And they'd say, what? I'd say, yeah, cut your room rates in half. What do you mean? Well, if you do that, more people will come. Yeah, but we'll lose money per room. I said, oh, but you didn't say that. Okay, good point. We want to make more money per room. I'd say, well, double your room rates. What? Double your room rates. You'll make twice as much money per room. Yeah, but fewer people will come. Oh, you didn't say that. And we keep peeling back the onion until we got to the core, to the essence, to understand what it was they wanted. And then we could figure out what to do. So I took a lot of the exercises that I've done for our clients, and now I've put them in a way that people can fill these forms out and go through these different stages, these different steps, and figure it out. I've set up, as you know, strategic roundtables where I bring people together and we work to help them figure out how to accomplish what they want to accomplish. I don't do the implementation, but I get them on the right path, give them the roadmap Because what's the old saying? If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you don't ask the right questions, the answers don't matter. So the idea is to spend the time, do the work to understand who you are, what you want, and then start looking at how you're going to get there.
So that's very interesting. And you quote Viktor Frankl, which I love, and absolutely right. You can basically decide about your attitude. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is when you think you find what you want. Then I have two questions on that. The first one: how do we really know without trying to find the right business setting, if you want, that this is really what you want, that you indeed going to be fulfilled and wake up in the morning excited? And the second thing, one of the people that you've interviewed, Seth Werner, together with Susan and you create this amazing group, Strategic Forum, that I'm so lucky to be a member of. I didn't know that about Seth, but obviously what you experience and the toughness of the life you experience when you're younger is kind of building you in a certain mindset for the future. So if you take the attitude that you can choose, but also the education that you've had or the experience that you have, and you put them together, you decide of what is it that you want, great. How do you know that is really what you want without actually jumping at some stage and then start doing what you think is going to fulfill you?
Well, it's interesting because remember, I interviewed a lot of people and they had different opinions about that. So some people said, you just go for what you want. Robert Mazzucchelli, who wanted to be a professional tennis player, he said, you can't cross a chasm in 2 jumps.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Which is a great saying, right? So his point was you got to just go out as hard as you can and jump. But he'll also tell you, and he did in the book, that he was seated at number, I think, 700 in the world, and he was able to make it up to 300 in the world in 2 years of 24/7 focus. So at some point he decided, you know what, if I work this hard again and I make it the top 100 in the world, I'm still not going to make it as a professional tennis player. And he decided that what he was doing was not going to help him. Marshall Goldsmith wrote a book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Yeah.
And that was what, that title makes a lot of sense to me. So the answer to your first question is you don't know necessarily what you do will make you happy. Not to mention the fact that this is a ongoing process. It's not like you get to the top of the mountain and you go, well, I'm done now. Every time you uncover a problem, you just discover another one. The idea is to be on a journey, to be on a path. What do they say? Getting there is half the fun. No, getting there is all the fun. Because once you get there, then what? Then you ask the question again, is that all there is? The other thing I think is very interesting, there's a guy in the book by the name of Ed Wasserman. He just retired as the Dean of Journalism at Berkeley.
Yeah.
And Ed said, we think when we look back at our lives that we follow this very cogent path. He says, because we all want to be the hero in our own movie. So we stitch it all together to make it make sense. He says, but the truth is, you live your life and stuff happens and you respond. And often it's the response or the stimulus that causes the way your life proceeds. He says, you say, thinking back, I wanted this job or this career, so I moved to this city and I took this job because that would get me to this next step. He says, but you take the job and then you look over and you go, wow. And there's a cute girl or a cute guy sitting next to you. He says, and 2 years later, you're married and you have a kid. And he says, and then 5 years later, I got 4 kids. And he says, our idea of family planning was, you're what? So we like to think that it's well thought out, but often it's not. Often we are responding to what's happening. So the idea is that if you have in your mind what your values are, what matters to you, it helps very much to keep you on the path. Whether or not that ultimately is where you want to wind up, I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is you will have a sense of fulfillment and productivity because you're moving forward in a positive way. And then you continue to pivot. It's like sailing. based on where the wind is, you can't always get from point A to point B in a linear fashion. You have to tack across the wind and tack back. But by moving along and keeping your eye on the ball, to mix my metaphors, ultimately you will get to where you want to go.
That's really one other common thread of all the interviews that I read in your book. Things happen. And I love personally, I do believe in serendipity and what the universe can bring. And I know on this one, you still, yeah, the universe or maybe. But what I really like is whatever the context, whether you think it's the universe or not, serendipity, it's really all those people, it's how they reacted to what was happening and was important to them.
Yeah. And by the way, I think it's important also that I didn't simply present my own opinion. So
correct.
We talked about Susan before. Susan was explaining to me that the universe provides the path. She is a universe will provide person. I am not. I said, okay, Susan, how do you know? I kind of asked your question. How do you know you're on the right path to what you want? And Susan said, if you pay attention, the universe puts little explosions in your pathway. I say, come on, Susan, you know I don't believe in that universe will provide stuff. And Susan's answer was wonderful. She said to me, okay, universe doesn't care if you believe it or not. Care.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love that. That's a sense of faith based on who she is and what her values are. Now, as I said, the book is not, here's my opinion of what you should do. Here is my research. I'm a marketing guy. We do research. Here's my research into what a bunch of people who have successfully pivoted have done. I wanted to make sure that I was providing proven, actionable tools, tips, and techniques. Absolutely. So you can choose to use them, or you can choose to say, I would never do that. Both of those, I believe, are productive to help you get to where you want to go.
And going back to your point and say, okay, you need to know what you want. You need to understand your value. You need to know what's driving you. I think also what I like in one of the examples is planning for that, because I'm speaking with some friends, they have their business. They say, oh yeah, I want to sell my business. I want to retire in 5 years. They say, okay, what's your number? So what do you mean? How much do you need? How do you want to live in 5 years? I don't know. And I'm sure you're going to tell me the name of all the people. I just remember the story that he has been buying different hotel front of water.
Mike Grimet.
Okay. Michael Grimm. No, what's his name?
Grimet is how it's pronounced.
Grimet. I'm sorry. I was saying
it looks like Grimm. No, it looks like Grimm.
Grimet.
Michael Grimet.
And he became a pilot because he wanted to be a pilot. And he's thinking, yeah, but if I'm now, I think it's for Gulfstream, but he's thinking that when he's going to turn 65, he cannot be a pilot commercially now. So basically, he's already planning based on his values and what he likes, his next life, the next part of his life, which I thought is very inspiring. It means that you can always learn and you never stop learning. You can always change depending on what drives you.
Michael had a great quote that he attributed to one of his mentors. He said his mentor held up a pencil and said, I like to solve my problems here, and pointed to the eraser. And the idea was, I like to think through what I want to accomplish, try to figure out what's going to happen ahead of time, and then start doing it, because it's much cheaper to erase some numbers or some recommendation on a piece of paper than to fix a problem. I used to tell my kids when they were little, it's easier to stay out of trouble than to get out of trouble. Sometimes you don't have the choice, but if you think these things through, to your point, I want to retire in 5 years. Okay, how much do you need? I don't know. Okay, how much do you have? I don't really know. Okay, well, if we do an inventory, what are your liabilities? What are your assets? Can we do a balance sheet? You know me, I'm not a big fan of accounting, but it is kind of critical to know, here's what I own, here's what I owe, here's where I net out, here's what the tax ramifications are going to be, here's how I want to live. Yeah. Here's how much money I need.
I think you still not quote, but recognize the help of your, what is the economy accounting teacher?
Yes, Professor Snowball. It was very helpful. And I do it today. You know, I keep very close watch on how that number is moving, not to tell anybody what it is, not to use it for anything other than peace of mind. Mm-hmm. Okay, if this happens, then this happens. I can overcome this problem. If my kids need this, I can deal with that. I know what my values are. I know who I want to be. Therefore, I'm able to put a price tag on it and know what I need in order to be where I want to be.
Awesome. And once again, I truly recommend your book. Having read everything, it's inspiring. It's different from one story to another. It's also looking at the future, what we're going to be doing. And now, last year, before actually when the pandemic started hitting, I was with my EO forum doing our annual retreat. And I remember Noah Rosenthal was planning the whole thing for us. And he said, the theme is going to be your life in 10 years. And quite frankly, I went into it and okay, whatever, my life in 10 years. And I did all the exercise and it really changed the way I was looking at it. And I just loved it. As usual, it's just like you, when I'm listening to him, I'm always learning something. But the bottom line is I've been able to always coming back at how I see my life in 10 years. And if there's all there is, no, there's much more that it's coming. So my last question for today, Bruce, I really would like for you to share, now that you've written this book and also what you've learned by interviewing the people, what are the next 10 years of your life and how different it is from what you think it would be before writing this book?
Before writing this book, my belief was I had to be in the office first. I had to leave the office last. I had to focus 150% of my time and effort on running a business, on doing implementation, on pleasing my clients. Now, I don't believe any of that. I believe that and I had to be the best at what I did, the function of what I did. Now, I believe I have to be the best at who I am. I believe that my clients, my potential clients, my opportunities to write new books, shoot new videos, do new speeches, get consulting jobs are based in the fact of this quote: people don't choose what you do, they choose who you are. Part of what I told you earlier is nowadays we have access to anything at any time, anywhere, any place because of the internet, because of democratized information, because of globalization. So you can buy what I do. You can buy other books that talk about how to plan your future. You can find people who understand how to do branding. If you want someone to do those things, you can find them. What you can't find anywhere else is me. There's a great story about Jim. You know that I'm a musician for fun mostly, but there's a great story about Jimmy Buffett. Jimmy Buffett was being asked the key to his success. And the reporter asked him if the key to his success was his musical ability. And he said, well, I don't know if you've heard me play guitar. He says, but I'm not that good of a guitar. I mean, Mac McAnally, my guitar player in my band, he's a virtuoso. He can play circles around me. He says, and I can sing my songs, but I'm not that good of a singer. He says, those three women who are standing up behind me, two of them are on Broadway. They're in musical productions. And the woman over there, she's an operatic trained singer. She has an 8-octave range. She can read and sing and she can do anything. He says, I ain't that good of a guitar player and I ain't that good of a singer, but I'm the best goddamn Jimmy Buffett on the planet. And so my job is to be the best goddamn Bruce Turkel on the planet, just like your job is to be the best damn Eric Rosenberg on the planet, because that's where our futures all collectively lie.
Beautiful. Love it. And I also remember a friend who being asked, how do you become a good speaker? He said, you have two options. You land a plane on the Hudson, or you speak, and you speak. And that is a story that you told me from you, that I've been repeating that. And I just love what you just said right now. And that's really for me, the beautiful conclusion. People don't choose what you do. People choose you because of who you are. And I think it's brilliant. Bruce, it has been a pleasure. Once again, your last book is That All There Is? I cannot repeat myself more than that, saying really, ladies and gentlemen, buy this book. You will, I wish you as much excitement and inspiration that I've had by reading it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Bruce, once again, thank you for joining me today. Fabulous conversation, fabulous book. Is that all there is? And I love what you said. People don't choose to work with you for what you do, but for who you are. That's absolutely brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please do so on LinkedIn or join my Facebook group, www.eventbusinessformula.com/group. And if you have any value from this podcast, please share it with your friends and give me a review on Spotify, Apple, whatever the platform you're listening on. Thank you. Bye-bye.